Wow, here we are again, folks. Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. The one thing that you don't see between the tidbits is that I'm a living man, that I live in between each tidbit that you see on this screen. Sometimes those periods are long times. As our battle goes, humanly speaking, we have a battle with ourselves. We are prone to try to please ourselves and not God. We must be careful that we do not put ourselves on the throne. Of late, I have been sick and more sick, and have been battling it. And now I don't believe that God has put this sickness on me. I believe that I'm under attack of the devil, why this sickness has been upon me. But during this period of time, I've been able to do some soul searching. I have no doubt that November 5th, 1972, at 3 o'clock in the morning, God touched my heart just like he did Nebuchadnezzar in the Old Testament. If we will study the book of Daniel, the last half of chapter 4 and about halfway through chapter 5, we will see the hand of God, the eye of God, the knowledge of God, the person of God, looking at a particular man, Nebuchadnezzar I, and giving him a kingdom, and Nebuchadnezzar I taking that kingdom and attributing it to his own self and to his own wisdom, when God had said, I'm the one giving this to you. You are not making this. I'm giving it to you, but I want your wisdom to rule it. But when he got proud, his pride stepped up before God and said, look at what I have done. And he declared a great feast. And his sin was that he took the articles that had been stolen from the temple in Jerusalem, brought them in and desecrated them by filling them with wine in a wine orgy, in a, if you please, a sexual orgy. They're all drinking wine, dancing nude, doing things opposite from God, and he fills them with wine. And they drink it. And a handwriting comes on the wall and writes some words. Mene, mene, tekel, Eusephase. And what it said, you have been weighed in the balance, Mr. Nebuchadnezzar, and you have been found wanting. And therefore you will be going to sudden destruction. That is a relief to me, that because God has not had to weigh my pride, because I have none. I like what I do here, but it's God that does it through me. It is not me. I'm so far from wanting. I want to do many things and can't because I can't spell. I have no ability to rise up in pride because I can't even write. I can't write a letter somebody can understand. I can study the Bible and understand it because God's given me that. How many men were in the Bible that were writing the Bible that couldn't write? They had scribes with them. They quoted what God was saying. They heard it in their heart. They heard it in their head. They heard the words. They could say the words, yet they couldn't put them on paper, on parchment. And a scribe scribed for them, and they put them on parchment. Now, how many people has God used? Very uneducated people. never even allowed to go to college, couldn't go to college. College wouldn't accept them. And they became some of the greatest preachers in our past days of the world. And any writing they did, somebody else had to write it, and they had to quote it. And so we have those. Listen to the story, and starting in verse 21 of Daniel chapter 4. On down toward the end, "It is you, O king," he said. He was talking about a tree that was beautiful, prettiest tree that ever was on the earth, with the beautiful green leaves, and it yielded fruit, and it dropped nuts down, and it was beautiful, and it was the prettiest thing to look upon as far as trees go on the earth. And the Bible said, this was you, Nebuchadnezzar. This was you. But you got proud and lifted yourself up about God. God's the one that made you that way. And then you put yourself above God, and He had to knock you off your pedestal. God watches from His holy tower and His holy kingdom everything that's happening on the earth, especially with His chosen people. Notice in verse 25 of chapter 4 that He says, Most High. He said, "Till you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whomsoever He chooses." God, the Most High, had given this kingdom to Nebuchadnezzar. And he swelled up and beat on his chest and said, "Look what I've done." No, it wasn't what he did. It's what God did through him. We must be very careful, my friends. Verse 26. After you come to know that heaven rules. In verse 26 it said, "Insomuch as they gave the command to leave the stump and the root of the tree, your kingdom shall be assured to you." This is after you come to know that heaven rules. Verse 28, 29, let's look at 29. At the end of 12 months he was walking about the royal palace of Babylon. The king spoke, saying, "Is not this great Babylon that I have built for a royal dwelling by my mighty power and for the honor of my majesty?" Wow. We better be careful we do not take the glory of God and attribute it to us. I am a rotten, dirty sinner, saved by the grace of God. And it's He who works through me to do righteousness. In me, there is no righteousness except God. And when God is there, if I jack myself up equal or above God, He will smite me too. So I have to be very careful also. And so does every other preacher. Let's look at verse 32. "And they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make you eat grass like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you." He was going to be put out in the pasture for 7 years and eat grass. God was not done with him yet. God was not done with him yet. And eat grass. So, the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomsoever He chooses. He has going to allow this man to have to go out and eat grass until he comes to his senses. It took him 7 years to come to his senses. And Nebuchadnezzar, it says here, he was driven up from the men to eat grass, and the dew was on him every night. It fell, and had grown like, his hair had grown like eagle feathers, and his nostrils like his nails, like bird's claws. And at the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes, and my understanding returned to me. And I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever. You see, he didn't lift his head up then and curse God. He didn't lift up his head then and do opposite of what God said. He lifted his head up and did what God said and praised God and said, God, you are the Most High. You are the most powerful. You are the one. We've got to be careful that we don't fail to keep that in front of us. That God is the one that should be always in front of us. And my understanding returned to me. And I blessed the Most and praised and honored. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom is from generation to generation. All inhabitations of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven. I love it. In the army of heaven. Now, the army of heaven is paying attention to what's happening on this earth. And the army of God this is a chosen army. This is a special army. This is not just any army. No one can restrain his hand or say to him, what have you done? Verse 36, at this same time my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor, my splendor returned to me. My counselors, my noblemen reported unto me. I was restored to my kingdom and excellent. Listen to this. Majesty was added to me. There's only one majesty. That is God. When majesty is added to you, you've said, Jesus, I am a sinner. Forgive me of my sin. Come in my heart and save my soul. That is the beginning of your walk with God. Now, when you give yourself 100% to him and you put him on the throne, then the majesty of God will control your life. Wow. Listen to this. Praise and extol and the honor and the kingdom of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways justice. And those who walk in his pride, he is able to put down. If you walk in your pride, he will put you down. Nebuchadnezzar came to that point. Took him 7 years out there eating grass like an animal in the field. Can you imagine that? Let's you and I be careful, lest the worst thing come on us for 7 years. Or even that, we go to heaven sooner than our time. I don't want to go to heaven until my time is. I don't want to go to heaven early because I disobeyed God or because I raised myself up in pride. I'm proud in this sense of the word that I don't have an education, that I can't put my education up and say, hey, God, I could do this education-wise. No. I really shouldn't use that word, that I was proud of that. I'm not proud of that. But I'm glad that God allowed that in my life so that I wouldn't raise myself up to God like Nebuchadnezzar did. He was just a normal man. But when he got all swelled up and things was too good for him. All the way down into chapter 5. The young Nebuchadnezzar now is taking over where his father was. And he had done things too. And so we find out that he's going to spend some time fighting God because of his pride. Pride goeth before a fall. Mark her down. Pride goeth before a fall. Don't think more of yourself than you ought to. All right, it's Brother Peter saying goodbye. Our time's come and gone. We'll see you next time. Right. Bye-bye.